I would like to introduce the Lunchtime keynotes. Everyone, please, if I could have your attention. As noted in the schedule and the program, during lunch, so while you continue to eat, we are going to be provided with a keynote address of sorts by Dr. Candace Galla and Dr. Mark Turin. And the title for this is Digital Futures, Indigenous Language Revitalization in the 21st Century. Candace is an assistant professor in the Department of Language and Literacy Education at the University of BC. She received her MA in Native American Linguistics and a PhD in Language, Reading, and Culture with a specialization on Indigenous language revitalization, education, and digital technology from the University of Arizona. Mark serves as the chair of the First Nations and Endangered Languages Program and associate professor of anthropology here at UBC. He directs the World Oral Literature Project and the Digital Himalaya Project, and he writes and teaches on ethno-linguistics, language endangerment, visual anthropology, digital archives, and fieldwork methodology. So please welcome Candace and Mark.
Kunihi kamauna I ka laie o wai ale ale la I wai lua. Hu kia ela I ka lani ka papa a wai o ka waikini. A lai ia ela e no nalo ka ipu haa ka laula mauka o ka pae. Mai paa I ka leo he ole ka he mai e. Aloha mai kākou o wau o Candace Galla o Wahine Kapu Galla no Hawaii mai au. He polopeka kākou ma ke kula nui o Kolumepia Pelekania. My name is Candace Galla o Wahine Kapu Galla, and I'm from the island of Hawaii. And I want to acknowledge that I'm a guest here on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Halkamina Musqueam-speaking people. And it's an honor for Mark and I to present our co-keynote presentation today on Digital Futures, Indigenous Language Revitalization in the 21st Century. So with this Futures Forum, we've talked about documentation, archiving, and today we'll briefly share with you some of our experiences and some of our work involved with language revitalization, specifically thinking of the future. Once we have our materials archived or digitized, what are the possibilities we have in our communities? So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and have a seat now. So I just want to share with you that this is where I grew up, was raised, born in Hilo on the east side of the Big Island, where the cursor is. And where the red dot is Pahala, where I was raised, again, on the island of Hawaii, a small sugar plantation town. The picture below is a beach where I consider is my home, Punalu'u Black Sand Beach. So my area of interest and research is in Indigenous language revitalization and education, and looking at how Indigenous communities around the world are using technology for language education. So I have this quote here, I won't read it, but I was very interested in this, not since I was a young child. Maybe I should say that Hawaiian is not my first language. Hawaiian wasn't used in my home, although my mom is a kumuhula, hula master, and so with hula I was able to learn Hawaiian informally through our performative arts. And while I was at University of Arizona, I became interested in seeing or in learning about language revitalization. I learned Hawaiian when I learned Hawaiian formally when I attended Kamehameha schools beginning in 7th grade. And I moved to the island of Oahu to attend this school. So I boarded there for 6 years. And that was where I learned Hawaiian formally for the first time. So I'll share with you maybe some of the technology initiatives that has been going on in Hawaii for maybe the last 20 or so years, but also some of the new technology or maybe the new initiatives that's been happening. We only have a short amount of time, and I want to give Mark enough time to present on his work as well. So I'll quickly go through this. So for over, I would say 2 or 3 decades, we've had Microsoft and Apple's support, maybe at varying lengths. On this image here, we have Keola Donaghy, who was a professor at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, in Kahakaʻula Keʻelikolani College of Hawaiian Language. Now he's situated at the University of Hawaii and Maui campus. And so he's been involved with technology and finding ways to maybe localize Hawaiian language with these technologies. And so you see here a screenshot of the notepad on the far right or on an iPad. And you see as we start typing in Hawaiian, you see that they're autocorrecting, or it's autocorrecting there. And so for quite a while now, when you buy these software programs or Microsoft Word, Office, Hawaiian is embedded with that. So you don't necessarily need to install a separate keyboard or a different Hawaiian font in order to see Hawaiian language. So Keola Donaghy has been a huge part of that movement. We also have Google, where you can search in Hawaiian. I chose this screenshot just to show you what it sort of looks like. And I share this with my students, and you see the image at the top. Of course, you can search in English or Hawaiian, but the buttons right below appears in Hawaiian. So the image, the button right below it says, Huli Yau Google, so search in Google. So maybe we don't necessarily know what that means, but we have an association with it because we all use Google. Most of us use Google, and we can apply that. And the next one, I think, says Laki Pahau. Do we all know what that means? What's that? I'm feeling lucky, right? And I don't think I've actually used that button before. But again, being familiar with the Google search engine, we can associate with what that means. When we do search in this Google Hawaii, you see these different search features at the top, and that's translated in Hawaiian. But again, the search results come back in English unless the website is in Hawaiian. More recently, we have something, we have Google Translate, and I have screenshots of here as well. You notice at the very top, the top image, translating from Hawaiian to English, and this was something, a short phrase, e ola mau ka olelo Hawaii. So may the language or Hawaiian language live on. And then I translated, or I included a Hawaiian phrase at the very beginning or sentence introduction that I gave you, aloha mai kako, and you can see it there. But you look at the English translation, it's not quite robust yet. And so people need to correct Google Translate so that when people do actually use this for translation purposes, it provides an accurate response. So it says here in English, aloha from us, and then it says, the Candace Galla Ovihine Kapu Galla, my name, for ko ni ka'u. So it doesn't really understand place names yet. and a professor at the University of British Columbia. And then it also includes Hawaiian words in there as well. So it's still trying to figure out what's happening. But within the last few months, people have been contributing to this translation feature. One of the really interesting things that we have in Hawaii is our ulukau, or Hawaiian electronic database. And this is available online for anyone to use, whether you're Hawaiian or not, or an academic or not. And we see the feature, or we see the screenshot in Hawaiian first. And I think this is really important for us to think about, because when we're trying to revitalize our language, we want to see our languages first, regardless if only a small percentage of us understand it. So there's a feature to click on so that we can see the English version, which I have in the forefront here. So ulukau houses our many dictionaries that have been published from the 1800s by missionaries, as well as our native Hawaiian cultural specialists and linguists. We have books, which are cultural books, academic books, reference books, kids' books that we've published within the last 30 years. We have images, information about genealogy, and newspapers as well. So again, this is available for all of us to see. So I'll go through a few of these just to give you an idea of, again, possibilities. And I know some of us come from communities where we already have these established. And this dictionary, this online dictionary, again, is offered through ulukau. And you can search in English or Hawaiian. So I searched Canada. And I think this is really interesting for us to think about. The Hawaiian is kanaka. And maybe a little side note here, Hawaiians have come up to the Pacific Northwest, or traveled to the Pacific Northwest, since the late 1700s. So there's some presence here in the lower mainland. How many of us are familiar or from maybe Maple Ridge area? And so may I ask, do we know of a highway, or in particular, what is that highway name?
I know the creek.
Okay, the creek.
Kanaka Creek.
Kanaka Creek, right. So Kanaka is a Hawaiian word, which means man. So there's presence here in the lower mainland. Hawaiians also resided along Stanley Park, as well as Salt Spring Island. So I pull this up just so we can see the connection between Hawaii and our place where we're situated today. So again, you can see that this can be viewed in Hawaiian and in English. English has a tab at the very top. Now puke vehevehea pa, where my cursor is, this searches all the dictionaries that we have. Again, some of our dictionaries, which were published from the mid-1800s to our most recent dictionaries that were published with our new new words that we're developing for our schools, our immersion schools. There are also place name dictionaries as well that you can download. Some of these are also available in PDF form, so if you want to download it on your computer or your mobile device, you can do that as well. Then I'll show you some books that we have. This is an anatomy book that was published in 1838 by missionaries. It's about 78 pages or so. Again, you can just view this online, but if you want a PDF file, you can download that for viewing. We have books, Na Koko o Keia, Keiki Hawaii, The Bloods of This Hawaiian Child. And what's really nice about this, because it's available as a PDF, many of our parents or Hawaiian immersion caregivers can download these and read them to their children, or help themselves learn Hawaiian at the same time. Because as you know, Hawaiian was forbidden to be used in public and private schools since the late 1800s. And so it wasn't until 1986 where a law was repealed saying that we can include, or we can teach our Hawaiian children, or children in general, in Hawaiian medium. So many of our parents or grandparents do not speak Hawaiian or don't know Hawaiian, and so we have these references and or resources for them at their fingertips. again, only if they have access to our technology. We have also another project that has been ongoing. And this is, again, a screenshot in Hawaiian first, and then in the background you can see it in English. In Hawaii, we had over 100 different Hawaiian language newspapers. And this is an example of one particular newspaper called Nupepa Kuakoa. And this is from January 1864, January 9th, 1864. And I chose this because it talks about George Vancouver and his naming of, well, it's not naming of Vancouver, but just the significance. And so you can see this is the scan of the newspaper itself, what it actually looks like, and the transcription here. And so maybe I'll share with you quickly, I have some time to share with you a video by OEV TV, and it talks about this exact newspaper project.
O ana ke Lolena Nicholas, ke kahi maka I koe o ka pahu I kaika ana I ka ho'ola hou ia o kākākou o lalo makuahine, no ke kana kolua oi paha makahiki.
Komo I loko ke ia no ka ho'ola anu po ka ku o lelo. I nā keiti hiki wawe ka mea ka ike I nā apo I ka ike I nā kako o lelo mau ia lako.
A I loko ke ia mau makahiki he kana kolu I hala I honei, ua kukulu a ho'opaa hou ia he onai hana kula e ho'ona o wao ia I kākākou mau keiki, ma oka o lalo Hawaii I piha.
Ua haivo ia o kou no ke kai o lalo no e au, I ka o lalo no ke ola, I ka o lalo no ka make.
O ke kahi kumu waiwai nui ko'i o ke ia kukulu hou ana, o ia hoi na au he ho'okai haneli I wakalua kumalima kau kani o na nupepa Hawaii I kahiko, I paa ia ma vaino ka makahiki 18 kana kolu kumaha, I ka makahiki 19 kana hakumawalu.
Mai loko mai o ke ia mau nupepa, ma leila no ke kuana ike a kakoi I nei. Ho'ohana ia ke ia mo o lelo a o ia, I hiki ina ke ki ke apopu I ke kuana ike a me ka o lelo o ka wakahiko. E ola I ka o lelo Hawaii.
Ke mana nui nei, na hana e ola hou mai I keika hou mai ka o lelo Hawaii. E na he hapa wale no ke la I na a ole ho'okui ia, ho'opili ia I ke kahua kahi I lo a mi I ke la o lelo me ka ike. A aia no ka ike maloko ala o leila.
A ke pau I kaika nei a no o pua kea makahi papahana e imi ana I ke kiko a ma lama kiko hoe aku I ke ia mau nupepa.
I nā holo mua ke ia hana, he ka nauno kaukani a oia ka huina nui I loa makalima I ike ia ke kii. Aia no ke kai mau au koe a ale I pai ia makalola a ale pai ia ma ke kii kuhelu.
O ike ku o koa, he pu ali iau na ano kanaka like ole mai ke kaya ulu mai, e komo alu like ana ma kia ki ina hana o ke kiko hou ana, iwa mau au nupepa nei he mau kaukani, I loko o ke ia makahiki I hala I honei.
Ka la kana kolukuma makahi o iulei, e pau ana ke ia hana me ka lehu ka ho ili ana I nā whaila o nā au nupepa. Ai ka la iwa kālua kuma walu o noe mapa. Ka la koa, ho lele ia ka huina holo o koa I ka punai wele. Ka nauno kaukani au.
He la ko'i ka la ku o koa o ka makahiki 18 kana hakumakolu ma ko Hawaii mo o kala, o iai o ka la ia I ho oia ia I ko Hawaii ano ku o koa a ku ka awale mai na aupuni e ae. Ma ke ia po ia pili e kupu ai ke kahi kumo e ko'i ai ia la, o iai o ka la palena pau ia no ke ia papahana nupepa, a ka he ho o kahi ho kumo e koe mai ana.
O ka la ku o koa, ka la hanau o Lolena.
Holy lahanau ia ana ke Lolena, holy lahanau ia oi.
O Lolena ke kahi o nā hoa pai helu e kahi. Kona po e hoa apau ka po e kama aina iaia. Huki oia ia lako, me ko olelo. Pono oi komo I ke hana he mea ko I ke ia.
A oi ai a ole o ana ke he kanaka e noi ana I na ano mea like ole, He ho'okahi wale no noi nui kana ma keia laha nauana. Oia hoi, ke kōkua ana mai I ko I ke ku'oko'a ma ka ho'oko I ka pahuhopu nui.
He mea vei ke ia ia kako apou na po e ho'olohe nei e komiroko ke ia a kokua mea ka ko'o. No kako ke ia ke paipeini wa ia uku e komiroko ke ia hana nui. I ke wau ka ko'i o kia papahana. He nui a vai na mea I hana ia na po e kupuna I kua I hala. Aole mako ike, ale da po e pahe nui aole ike kolaku hana I ke la wā.
So I share this short video with you to show some of the initiatives that has been going on within the last, I would say, 10 years or so. And Auntie Lolena has been a significant part of the movement. She lived on the island of Ni'ihau. Now she lives on the island of Oahu, and she's been very involved with the Punana Leo, our language nest, from the beginning. And so it's really nice to see and to hear her voice. Another professor that you saw there is Puakea Nogomeyer, who's not Hawaiian, but has been involved with Hawaiian language for many, many decades. And so this is one of his initiatives that he's taken on. I also want to share with you very briefly Kaleo Hawaii. This is a program that Dr. Larry Kimura, who's pictured in the right, and some of us have maybe heard his name before or have met him in different conferences around language revitalization. He was involved with the KCCN radio station and a program called Kaleo Hawaii, where he wanted to bring in our elder speakers of Hawaiian language and record them. And so this is a radio program that he was involved with from 1972 to 1988. These recordings were made available, but only through the university. And this year, through a grant, they're able to digitize all of these recordings, and these are 417 recordings from 7-inch reel-to-reel tapes, and they're making it available online. So the first few episodes will be available hopefully soon, with everything up hopefully by the end of the year. So this is a really great initiative, and this is something that Larry Kimura wants so that everyone, the public, can hear the voices of our kupuna or our elders. When you think of our documentation and records that we've had for centuries, we need to think of how we're actually using it for language revitalization and language education if we want to promote and perpetuate our language. Because Hawaiian is available online, I'm able to continually learn and to access these resources wherever I am. I lived in Arizona for over 10 years, and I've been here now in BC for more than 5 years. And so these digital resources have afforded me this opportunity to continue my learning. And actually, before coming here today for this presentation, I just got off teaching Hawaiian language to my mom's halau. They're her hula students. And you see pictures here of her halau or haumana, her hula students learning kunihi kamauna, an oli or a chant that I just did at the beginning of my presentation, as well as keiki girls learning Hawaiian language as well. And so this is something that I've been doing for a few months now, because Hawaiian language is an intricate part of hula. Without Hawaiian language, hula doesn't exist. And just very briefly, I'll go through one more slide. Thinking of technology and how we promote our languages in various ways and various modes. I often like to say that we need to think of our languages or treat our languages with just as much maybe respect, I'll put it in quotes, as English or other world languages. Wherever we see English and or French or Mandarin, we should see our Indigenous languages well. The Bank of Hawaii has afforded us, Hawaiians, when you go to the ATM, you can choose to see or to interact with the ATM in Hawaiian language. So this is something maybe we don't necessarily think of when we think of technology. Maybe we're just thinking of our handheld devices or our laptops or our computers. But we have to think of technology in broader scale and broader terms. So with that, I'll leave you with me ke aloha and mahalo nui. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. It's a real privilege to share a platform with Candace, mahalo Candace, and share a few thoughts with you today. Just as Candace has, I'd like also to acknowledge where we are and not just trip into something that happens so often in these spaces, which is an acknowledgement of territory, but actually acknowledge the teachings and learnings that we have the pleasure of experiencing, the honor of receiving from our Indigenous hosts here. So my thanks to members of the Musqueam First Nation, whose language, Hunkaminam, revitalizes itself through the teaching and learning that happens on campus and in community. There's so many things to talk about today, and I've only got a few minutes and mindful of your afternoon schedule. So I'd like to share one story about a project that's been going for 15 years that really started out as a digitization project and then became a culture and language activation and mobilization project. And projects like this live or die by the strength of their partnerships and the longevity of the data. And that's something that I'd really like to underscore today. Now, the New Zealand Film Archive, with which I have absolutely no connection, but I think is a terrific organization, set out to collect, protect, and connect the visual history and materials of Aotearoa of New Zealand for the benefit of community members, anybody, in fact, who would want to access the material. And I think those three verbs, collect and protect and connect, sum up a lot of what many of us do in our work. And I'd like to use them as a way into a brief discussion around a project that's going to take you quite far away from here. There's a very strong and welcome regional focus at this workshop, at the Futures Forum. And just the way that Candace has, I'd like to pivot a little and take you to a different part of the world, if only to bring you back again and talk about how other communities are using collections, protecting those collections, stewarding them, and then mobilizing them, connecting them online, in print, on air, and in communities as appropriate. So, to that end, I'm going to talk about something called Digital Himalaya. 15 years ago, with colleagues in the UK, we realized that there were a lot of collections in, well, the heart of the kind of colonizing vortex, British libraries, museums, and archives, that had been acquired, often through very dubious means, from communities around the world. Their visual history, their material cultures, and many of those documents themselves were becoming endangered in the analog formats in which they were held. So we realized that technology was in a position to actually help not only digitize and maybe future-proof, but use the technology, of course, as all of you are, and as you've heard about the many projects that are happening here in and around UBC, use the technology to leverage collections back into community hands. And I think this is so often how it starts. It starts with the glimmer of hope of a little money, some funding, the urgency of digitization. People who work in film, particularly 16mm and 35mm, have a phrase which they use to describe the importance of this work. They say, nitrate won't wait. silver nitrate film is very combustible, explosive, can degrade very quickly. So you have to do this work carefully, but also in good conditions. And then the sense 15 years ago, and just to think when hearing Candace's story of the long-term relationship that Hawaiian communities have with technology, to think that 15 years ago when we started, we hadn't heard of Google. We were still referring to the web with wonder, as the World Wide Web with rising tone. So I think it's often technology and funding driven, but I think we need to imagine processes now that aren't so dependent on what tools are available, because the tools will be there, we can build them. We have to think of what we actually want to do with the collections that we're working on. So this is what we were faced with. Colonial institutions like the British Library, Cambridge University Library, museums and archives, sitting on collections of 16mm film, audio tape. This is the most basic metadata you can imagine. It was taken by a colonial officer in northern India, on the border of Tibet, in the state of Sikkim, and he wrote in the 16mm film canister the location and the date of where he was. That's all we had to go on. And when these 23 reels of 16mm film were discovered in the archives, they hadn't, we think, been viewed and used for over 70 years. They date from 1931. So in the process of digitizing, we watched, of course, these films in a controlled environment on something like this, a Steenbeck. This is how we digitized it. Please don't try this at home. This was really a bad way to do it. This was very homemade and totally against any form of best practice. We projected the 16mm and we filmed the output. What you realize doing something like that, in fact, was that digitization is a sequential process. The early phases of digitization, people often threw away the analog records that they digitized. Thankfully, I think everybody agrees that's not a good idea anymore. But certainly, when you project and you film and you digitize something low quality, as we did, in order to just get a sense of the scope of the collection, in order to return it to the communities of origin, we had no idea the value of these materials. Nor did we know that soon after that we would get a grant from the UK government and later the BBC to actually digitize these materials to a very high level. So digitization can be sequential and multi-layered in a way that you don't always expect. Let me just show you a bit of footage. This is from 1931 in Tibet. Tibet was then an independent nation. This is prior to the Chinese occupation. And this footage, strangely and interestingly, doesn't seem to offend contemporary Chinese political sensibilities. So while you can't access the BBC, you can't use Google in China, you can download and view films from 1931 of an independent Tibet with a Tibetan army mobilized. So it's interesting also to imagine how history sometimes desensitizes certain documents as well as it resensitizes other ones in different conditions. Other footage from 1940s, in the middle or towards the end of the Second World War, from northern India, Arunachal Pradesh, which is now a very contested part of northern India, where the border with China is still disputed. This is an extraordinary festival that hadn't been filmed actually after that for a very, very long time. And the communities here, the Apatani communities, again, this is very dangerous. Please don't try this at home either. They were hugely excited because through the digitization, we came into contact with community members who were getting access to the visual records of their ancestors for the first time. Now, it is through the process of the partnership, the collaboration, the cooperation that you work out not only what can be returned, under what circumstances, where does it go to, who are the stakeholders, who has intellectual ownership of this material, but also the museum collections, as happens so often here in BC and beyond, are enriched in the process. Museums are holding collections that they don't actually know much about, and it's through the partnership that those collections are enriched and communities have access to their material records. One of the things about these digital projects is you don't always know who your users are, and we started tracking it through Google Analytics. I did a screenshot this morning. We've been very surprised to find that our website has 150 users every day coming to our pages, but most exciting is that more than half of those are in the countries from which the materials originated. 15 years ago, I think the general naive and maybe quite arrogant assumption was that the West would have the web and the rest would have DVDs and hard disks. That in order to connect with communities in remote parts of whether it be the Himalayas or other parts of the world, you would have to physically carry hard disks over to them, DVDs, CD-ROMs, etc. And now the rate of uptake of technology and access and penetration of wireless communications means that people are accessing materials in ways that really wasn't imagined a generation ago. And I think it behooves us as a community of engaged scholars and practitioners to think very carefully about what that access actually does. One thing that will be underscored in many of the presentations I've heard this morning, and I'm sure will continue today, is the sustainability of the platforms and technology. So how do you ensure that you don't produce something that works beautifully for a week, a month, a year, and then falls over when a system changes, when there's an update or a new web browser? That's been something that's very important, I think, to think about. We've been fortunate, having very limited resources as a project. We basically had to piggyback on open standards and open systems. That meant we couldn't be innovative technologically, but it did mean that we could hitch ourselves to platforms that were already quite robust. So as a result, the website, while funky looking, still works. Digital longevity is also important in terms of thinking where you put your materials. It's a conversation that's happening a lot here at UBC at the moment. Are universities, like UBC itself, a suitable home for collections that they do not have ownership of, but are maybe co-curating and supporting for community members? So institutional repositories like DSpace, which there's an instance of here as well, a digital backbone which undergirds kind of the library system and the collections. Something we've been very fortunate to be part of because all the collections can live on there. I'm going to wind up with a few thoughts about what happens next. I was really excited to hear Candace speak of the work of Larry Kimura, an inspiring and visionary language activist and radio presenter. Radio has become something, once again, that has served as a platform for the mobilization of language. I think the beauty of radio is not only did it not die when TV came along, but in fact it's been revitalized itself through the web. The power of radio is partly, I think, its asynchronous nature. The fact that you can listen to podcasts, you can listen online, you can listen offline, allows you to be doing something at the same time as you're listening to radio. It's perfect, of course, as a medium for oral and local languages, ones that maybe don't have historically rich written traditions or a large number of documents. Hawaiian, of course, is a big, is a very different case because of the depth of the documentation of which Candace spoke of. But I've seen communities all over the world use radio in particular as a way to mobilize their digital assets, but also their contemporary culture. I think the other feature of radio now in the digital domain is that it doesn't really matter where you are. You can be streaming content from anywhere in the world, and you don't have to be online at the same time as they're streaming. So unlike television, which has so many rights and is so, in many ways, provincial or nationally bound, radio doesn't have those boundaries, certainly in online spaces. By and large, radio is low-tech and fairly low-cost, and there are great examples here in BC. I think of New Hulk Radio and others across the states where community members are using radio platforms at pretty low cost to develop a very, very strong public, political, and essentially sort of sovereign self-determination platform through digital media. I was struck also that one of the features of radio as a method and a platform for mobilization is that it's non-exclusive. You can be doing something quite different at the same time, like cleaning fish, driving, looking after kids, with radio in the background. And I think that's been a feature that has been of particular interest to some of the communities I've been in touch with here in the Pacific Northwest, but also in other parts of North America. And Indigenous radio, Indigenous language radio, is often community-based, it's community-run, and community-owned. And certainly given the corporatization of mainstream media, that's a rare thing. So with that, I'm going to wind up, and thank you all for your time.
Hello. I think I just knocked off a piece of the technology. Mark and Candace, I apologize for probably cutting you short, and it's the fault of the lunch that arrived late. But fascinating talk and lots of good content, and it's great to see international perspectives brought into a local audience or a regional audience and a provincial audience. So I have tokens of our appreciation, one for each of you. They're heavy. I'm gonna, if you could just take one each, that would be great. And thank you so much.